Ever wondered about your school district and the role it plays in your community? If so, keep on listening. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for coming back to The Humanitarian. And as always, our goal is to take the listener on a journey of self-awareness in the community. Today we have Dr. Nita Meyer here to talk about and represent Noblesville Schools District and the role she plays in the district and the role that the district plays in the community. So thank you so much for being on here.
Yes, thanks for asking me, Sarah.
So first off, I'd just like to kind of get to know my guests a little bit and a little bit about you. So have you always lived in Indiana?
I have. I grew up in Fort Wayne.
Oh, okay.
And then moved to Central Indiana probably for a job about 20 years ago.
When you were in college or whatever, was it still in Indiana? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
I got my my bachelor's degree from Indiana, Purdue at Fort Wayne, and my master's from there, and then my PhD from Purdue University at Lafayette.
And what did you get those in?
Okay, I had my bachelor's degree was in elementary education with a reading endorsement and an aerospace science endorsement. And then my master's was in administration, and my PhD was in leadership and administration.
Oh, that's cool. I was just talking to my dad the other day, and for probably the last 6 months, I know I want to major in communications, but my minors I've kind of been playing around with a little bit, and but there's also how you can still take other classes even though they're not. So it's hard to pick a minor because I want to do everything.
Because you have so many interests.
Yeah. And so I've told a lot of people about double minoring in political science and environmental science. And then the other day though I was kind of thinking a marketing and media kind of minor too, because I feel that in today's age and stuff.
Yes.
To kind of brand yourself, and I don't know. There's so many choices.
Well, you've got some great options that you can consider. You'll figure it out.
That's hard. So did you do anything before you were the superintendent?
Yes, I was a teacher first, and taught for many years, and then I became a principal, and then from a principal I became a curriculum director, and then an assistant superintendent, and then a superintendent. So kind of the path always in education.
When did you really feel that you had a passion for education?
Oh, when I was a little girl, and I had a younger sister who was 6 years younger than me, and we always played school. And of course, she was always my student, and I always got to be the teacher because I was 6 years older. And I come from a long line of family, in my family of educators. My dad was a teacher. I had aunts that were teachers, so I knew very early on that I wanted to be a teacher.
That's so funny. I have, well, not anymore, but I had 3 younger siblings, and I would always during the summer play school with them. But I think it was for more me the leadership position. Mm-hmm. I just really liked being in charge, I guess. But it was fun, and I would give my siblings homework assignments and in elementary school when you have dollars or whatever, for being good. I don't know. And then I would get my dad to buy them treats at the store. That was so weird. I've never heard anybody else say that they've played school. Maybe people just don't admit it to it. They're we don't talk about that. That's not a thing. And so we talked about this a little bit before, but there's some misconceptions about your position and that the general public has about education. What would you think some of those would be?
I think the biggest misconceptions about education is that people don't understand the complexities of that all fall into running a school district. And I think since we all went to school, we think that we know what happens behind the scenes, and I just don't think there's an understanding of that. So I think that's the biggest one. And I think that there's probably some lack of understanding regarding how much the state and the federal government plays a role and impacts public education. So,
and I know we also talked about how your position is actually a hired position. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, that still blows my mind. I don't know, when I think of government officials, I always just assumed the person in charge of the school district, but you guys are your own separate organization.
We are. We're separate from the city government, but where you may have gotten, I can see where you can think about that because our school board, they are elected. And then one of their roles is they hire the superintendent. So while our school board and they're my boss,
Yeah.
they're my employers. They are elected and then they hire me. So that's where the politics comes in, I think.
Interesting. I don't know. It's interesting to look at kind of like when you take the time to analyze your community, like just how involved everything really is, and
It is. It's really
yeah,
it's really interconnected.
and like if we all like if we all like approach the community, I think as like this interconnecting web, I feel like a lot of communities who suffer could probably benefit a lot more, and like I feel like saying like better communication is kind of cliche, but I it's just a proven fact at this point, like just to improve the communication throughout your community. I've been experiencing that a lot with helping my mom. She is right now implementing like farm to school programs in her county, and um, it's just really interesting how like she's improving the communication between all of these different elements in this community, and how like these communities who are suffering is really because like these different departments like just won't communicate effectively. And I don't know, it's interesting how she's kind of like going in there and like fixing it's just the communication element.
It's really meaningful work.
Yeah, I think we actually talked about a little bit once I get my first innovations project up and running, maybe to bring some of her things that she's doing to Noblesville. And she does, like, the pea pod thing?
Yes.
Um, she is doing that, but with all, like, farmer stuff, not, like, grocery store.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
so that's really fun. And she has a couple of interns, like, fresh out of high school. And it's really fun to see her, like, doing something. And I don't know. I feel like this class is, like, going to be a great opportunity to kind of help, like, launch that into this community, too. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet. It's such a big concept, like, I don't know.
It is.
So I was kind of curious about, like, without getting into too many details, because I feel like there's definitely probably some, like, stuff you don't want to tell about, but, like, how schools are funded and, like, how really all those elements play together.
Sure. And you know what? There's nothing that's a secret about how public schools are funded, so I can tell you everything.
Okay.
The state provides a specific amount of money per student each year, but each year this amount can change. So districts that serve more affluent areas, they get less money per student, and school districts with a higher percentage of low-income students, determined by the number of students who get free and reduced, they get more state dollars. So these state dollars all go into the district's general fund, and they can be spent on instructional materials, programs, salaries, benefits for our employees, and guidance, media services, utilities, and supplies. So then other district needs like transportation and capital projects. And capital projects, that's construction and building and maintenance. Bus replacements and debt service, they're all funded through property and special taxes. So when the state implemented property tax caps legislation, it really it significantly decreased the amount of funding for schools. So schools can no longer fully collect property taxes from the residents. That's how we got into referenda. Referendum dollars, they're an optional funding source that have to be voted on and approved by the community. They support the district and they can be used by any area of the budget. But because of the property tax cap legislation and decreases in the state funding, districts are more dependent on referendum funds to maintain services for students. So that is School Budget 101.
So, like, things like at the high school, the library, and are these all things that you make the final decisions on?
Yes, and what we do is we will give, like the library, and the schools get some dollars that they can determine how they want to spend those.
Yeah.
And then, but for big purchases, like let's say the high school's roof, when it gets when it needs to be replaced, that comes from us, and we look at all of our facilities and we determine what the needs are, what the repairs are, and then we budget for those projects.
Okay. I know that I knew the school kind of had their own separate pool because for the AP Environmental Science, how we were doing the courtyards, we talked to Swafford about like how, and he's like, I'll just talk to another budget or something like that. He said some like Mr. Swafford thing, and he's like, but it was really interesting to kind of see like it was like an intro into like not for profit. I feel like that's the thing that I learned most from it. Like, I know a lot of kids kind of got out of it like plants and like that kind of stuff, and like for me the biggest thing was like planning a project and then like seeing how it plays into like the role, and then also like how non for profit kind of works differently than a for profit organization.
Yes. And it's no different when you think about a family budget. It's no different than that.
Yeah.
You set aside money for your groceries, for your car payment, for your house payment. School districts run a lot like that, only just on a larger scale.
And did you hear about that Muncie thing at the beginning of the school year?
Yes.
Is that I didn't do you know anything about that? Like
Just what I've read in the papers. I think that they were struggling financially, and it's hard. I think every school district struggles
with the budget?
Yeah, with the budget, because we don't the operations of running a school district and paying all your employees. It's a huge operation, and it's challenging, and so you're always, just like your home budget, you can't spend more than you bring in, or
Yeah.
you get into trouble. It's no different than that.
Did they end up being able to like reopen and stuff? I didn't
Yes.
really follow it. I read like one article.
Yes, they had to make some significant cuts in staffing, but they're open.
Okay, that's good. I've always was curious about that, but I guess I never just went after never looked it up. So you mentioned the referendum, and I know that's one way that the community kind of plays a little bit of a role. But what else, like, how else do community members play a role in the school district?
Oh, that's one of the things we're so fortunate being in Noblesville, because the community is so engaged with the schools. There's a lot of ways that we engage. We partner with many local businesses, of course, for internship programs at the high school, which is wonderful. We have, because of the business and the willingness of our local businesses to partner with us, it's really providing a lot of opportunities for our students. We also work closely with the Boys and Girls Club for young children after school care. We provide transportation for them. It's kind of it's a great partnership we have with them.
I used to work there, actually.
Oh, it's a great
It
organization.
is. It was really fun. I actually did a yard project with them, like my last year that I worked there, and that was like not-for-profit 101, I feel like. Like writing a grant and like going through the process of it. But it was fun working there. Definitely to kind of like have some time in the not-for-profit. But I'm definitely not a kid person, so I had to get a different job.
Well, that's okay. You found out that.
Yeah.
Some other things that we do is we work with like the local Rotary, the Midday Rotary.
Oh, yeah.
We have high school students that are a part of their Interact Club, and so that's a great partnership with another outside agency. We also work closely with the Noblesville Youth Assistance Program. They serve our students in need and their families in need. So, and then we work really closely with the city government, who may bring in speakers that come into all levels of our schools, from elementary, middle to high school, to talk about jobs and to talk about the community. So there's some great ways that we connect with all of the local
I know
community members.
Elena Schonkweiler, who used to work for the school, is now our internship coordinator. And I thought it was funny because my sophomore year, I did the like government and like fire office, fire department and police tour, and I met Elena on that, and I also met her my freshman year at the career fair. And so then my senior year, when she was like, "Oh, I'm your internship coordinator," and I was like, "Where do I know you?" And I had one of her like City of Noblesville business cards, and I was like, "This is the same person." And it was just crazy how through my entire high school, like she was over here, but then I was like, I don't know, it was funny, but
Yeah,
like
she's really very knowledgeable since she worked for the city in workforce development. she is the perfect person to lead up the internship program. So we're so lucky to have her.
She was really just good about the person that I internship for now. Like he's a lawyer, so he's like very busy, and he just like kept losing the contact info, and like the lady who was there before, I don't know, but then Elena just stepped in and like just did it, and I was just like, thanks, girl, because like I was about to like not have an internship, and I was like,
Oh,
no, I'm gonna have to take real classes and be at school. I'm like, no, this is my opportunity. I waited my whole high school, so like I can't wait till I can intern. But I was like, thank you so much for fixing that.
oh, that's great.
Um, so you, I'm gonna edit this out, but oh, we talked about so who is the school board? Like what do they do, and like what role do they play?
The school boards, they have four main functions. They hire and evaluate the superintendent. They are responsible for policy development, and I'm responsible for implementing those policies. They also work over curriculum and the budget. And then they oversee our facilities and our future planning for future growth. And they adopt the collective bargaining agreements, which is the agreements, the contracts that we have with teachers. So that's what the four main functions of the school district or of the school board. And as they ran for these offices, and they all have different jobs. So they have jobs outside of this. It's like a secondary job for them.
So the school board are elected officials then.
They are.
And then
So they
like
have to
are
run
they
a campaign.
your boss?
They
basically?
are. I report to them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And they're the ones who do my evaluation.
And do you like come to them with like kind of ideas or like
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We have got a really strong school board who are very involved, and we collaborate on ideas. We kick around ideas. We work together for the mission to establish the mission and vision for the district, and they're really innovative, creative people. So it fits really nicely in with our mission and vision for what we do as employees of Noblesville Schools.
So like the Miller Way thing that we have at our school is like that stuff that you guys do?
We talk about that, absolutely, and they support it. They're involved in so many facets. I provide them a weekly update of everything that I'm doing and what our cabinet level members are doing, so that they are always aware of all of the things that are going on. But they don't oversee all. I mean, they oversee from a kind of a 30,000-foot view, and then all of the staff, we do all of the managing of the school district.
Okay. And then I was thinking about this on the way here about the iPads and like the whole process and introduction of the iPads, and like who started that, like who brought that idea into Noblesville?
I really think it was the staff. I think our principals and teachers that embraced the idea of continuing to change and look at how we're preparing students for the future workforce. And that was a real grassroots effort. We've got some really strong principals and really strong teachers who drove that vision.
So then like they brought it to you, and then it was
They
brought
brought
to
it to the superintendent before me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you so like in innovations class, and really Don Wentrick's like mantra, I feel like, is just like in innovations we talk a lot about like school and like innovating school, and we talk a lot about, and we like read this article where school could like be broken down into like two facets, and it's like building strong leaders and leadership and asking interesting problem solving questions.
Yes, love it.
And I feel like when I think about every class that I've ever loved, is that's what we do. We take charge of a project, or we get projects with like no rules, or like just a kind of like a guideline. Like there's not you need 4 pages, you need 3 pictures.
Right.
And then it's ask interesting questions. Like I took yeah, 10th grade English, and I took honors with Mr. Kinley, and we spent we probably spent like half a semester writing these short stories. And I poured like my heart and soul into this project because I hate English. That's like, we're going to read this book, now we're going to write an essay. We're going to read this book, now we're going to write an essay. And it's like, great. I love doing this. And it's like, I don't know, like it's boring. But like this, and I like the part I loved about it most was that the way that I took my story was I made it about me in 30 years and like where I wanted to be. And
Dream for yourself.
yeah, and it was like I'm running for office and I have my own law firm, and I like kind of put like a little love interest story in there too, and like the guy who drives me around everywhere, we like ended up like getting married, and like it was just like so cute, and it was so, like, I'm saying this, but like it was really good. But um I think it's interesting how like the iPads kind of could either be very like helpful with the innovation, or I feel like sometimes teachers kind of get lost in um the technology, you know what I mean? Like, and it falls behind and it becomes like this like weight that they have to drag with them instead of
If you think about what you said, what you love about the classes that you loved, things that empowered you, ideas for you to think differently, think creatively, to problem solve. The iPad is simply a tool, and it's like a book, you know, and good teaching and good courses. It's about getting us to think differently and preparing our brains for the world beyond. So once you leave high school, whatever you're going to do with your life, we've got to provide you with all of those skills that will help you be successful and that will make you viable and your skill set relevant to the workforce today. So the iPad is just merely a tool to make that happen, but it still comes down to quality teaching, well-designed courses and lessons that motivate students, that get you thinking, that engage you so that you want to come to school every day and you don't ever want to miss those classes. That's what we want for every single class. And you know, you mentioned that there's some classes that are boring. Well, we would like to just eliminate boring, but you can still take. I mean, we still have content that we have to teach because you guys are tested on it.
yeah.
So how can we take that content and how can we make it relevant for you and draw you in so that you're interested and you're engaged while you're learning all of these concepts that you need to know. So
yeah. And like I was also kind of thinking, because we have these iPads, and I think that like as Noblesville we kind of implement this standard of learning, and like we've shown how we can either use the iPads successfully or we cannot use the iPads successfully. And so like maybe we could maybe take it to the next step. And I feel like the next step in the iPads and the implementing technology into like education would be to take it back to the state and hold a mirror to their face and be like, this is what we know and this is what we've seen, and it's time to get rid of the standards, or at least some of them. And I think that honestly, algebra 1 was probably the last math class that I've taken where I felt like I wasn't speaking another language. And like it's like all of these different maths since then that I've had to take. Um, and when I'm taking a direction of liberal arts, you know what I mean? And I feel like it takes all of this pressure off of school. And so if we could have a standard of excellence instead of standard of expectations, it would really take like a lot of elements out of school that would, and I'm not saying all standards like blow them off the face of the map, but like do you think that some of that is
you know, I think that you bring up some really good points, Sarah. I just testified in front of the graduation pathway panel, and they're talking about some of the same things that you're talking about. What do we need to do to reimagine education so that it truly is preparing kids for the world of today? You know, classrooms and school should not look the way it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because the world has changed vastly since then. So how do we change school and make sure that we are engaging students and preparing them for a world that's very different? For example, when I grew up, we had to memorize a lot of facts. Well, we now know, because we've got the World Wide Web, you can Google anything and you can get a quick response. So we don't need to memorize facts. But what we do need to teach students how to do is, where can you go for accurate factual information when you're searching on the internet? So see how it's shifting. We don't need to memorize as much anymore because it's at our fingertips.
Yeah.
We have access to that. But we do need to teach students how to make sure that they're not getting misinformation, that they're getting vetted, accurate, factual information. And so that's how schools have to continue to change. And so I think that the state legislators who make up the assessments and the content and the curriculum that they impose on schools are listening, and they're also studying other countries that have really quality educational systems, and they're saying, all right, what are they doing that's working well, and how can we take bits and pieces of those successful structures and put them into place here in the United States. So I think it's exciting. It's an exciting time in education, but I think we have to continue to ask questions. We have to continue as educators and leaders to do the same thing that we're asking our students to do. Ask questions, think creatively, think differently, because the world is demanding that of us, and we've got to make sure we're responding to it.
Yeah. And then, man, I had this thought, but this guy that I went and listened to talk today in Innovations, he said like he built a career off of asking questions, and like that is he like that's literally, he just kept saying that, and like probably the things he said, the two most said phrases that he said all morning were, I made a career off asking questions and opportunities are everywhere. And like, I mean, if every class could like mantra, like have that as their mantra, like even algebra, like I feel like all classes could still have that whole like swing of like change of thought, instead of like, well, this is what you have to do because that's what the state said to do. And then also, have you heard of the Genius Hour thing that Don?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes, like that is.
Well, we've got classrooms doing Genius Hour from elementary, middle on up. It's so exciting.
And so, like, is it like sprinkled in? Like certain teachers say like they'll take this on.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
All I know is that Don's Twitter is so, like, he's always doing something. So I like try to follow what's going on, and also I don't know everybody's name in the district, so I didn't know that was happening in our district.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and it's fun to see Genius Hour at an elementary level and see what those kids are coming up with, and giving them the time to think and try to solve a problem that they're really interested in. And then what's so cool for teachers is then they can weave in a lot of those skills that they are required to teach.
Yeah.
They can weave those in through projects that the kids are interested in and the kids are trying to solve and create and develop themselves. So it's a really amazing thing to see in action. And I think too, our learning showcase that we do every year at the high school, that's K-12, you get a real flavor of the kind of things that students are doing in their classrooms all the way through Noblesville schools. And last year, if you saw, there were some examples of Genius Hour embedded throughout the learning showcase. So it's a great way for people who haven't been in schools for a while.
Yeah.
Because schools look, and thankfully so, very different than when I was in school. And so it's exciting to showcase all of those different kinds of learning so that our community and our parents get to see it and understand that school no longer looks the way it did when any adults went to school.
I think
that's funny. A good thing.
Yes. I think it's funny. My parents always try to tell me how it is, and like this is how it's gonna be, and I'm like, no, it's not. And maybe you should listen to what I'm saying, because guess who's in high school right now, Mom?
Yeah.
Me, not you. Funny story.
Oh, I would love to be in high school today. It's so much better than it was when I was in high school. There's so many cool options and courses and
I would say
opportunities for kids.
80% of the week, I'm probably happy to be at school. The other 20% is because I'm tired. But like,
because you have to get up early.
Yeah, but like, well, also probably 80% of the things that I do at school are, like, I get that I have to take like math and like, I mean, like, that's how it is. But
well, and I think too, Sarah, the reality is all of us, I mean, I love my job. But there are parts of my job that are not as fun as other parts, but we still have to do them, you know? So
Yeah.
I think in school it's the same way. In any work situation, there's always going to be aspects of a job that you absolutely adore and that you'd like to spend your time on. And then there's going to be some of those more perfunctory things that you just have to do because it comes with the territory, but
Yeah.
you may not love them. And that's just part of life.
Yeah. I know Don definitely says that to us too. And they're like, he's like, I know we kind of do our own thing in here, but once you go back out into the other parts of the school, like, don't get in trouble.
That's
like,
right.
Just do it. And but also the Genius Hour thing, I don't know if this was a Genius Hour project, but like it definitely has some elements of it. For Key Club last year, I judged the robotics thing,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
it was so crazy. I hated judging these little kids because, like, I when I was their age, even just like since I've been in that grade, it's changed like crazy. Like, I would never have done something like that.
I know, isn't it impressive?
Yeah, and like they like get it. Like
They do. And don't feel bad about judging them because they need honest feedback. That's how they grow and how they learn.
Yeah.
So, and you're not going to hurt feelings if you do it in a kind, respectful way, but we need feedback. We've got to get away from always feeling, telling everyone a great
so
job.
PC.
Yeah, great job, when really what they need is really critical feedback that can help them learn from what they've done.
Yeah.
Because we all know that we learn more from the mistakes that we've made. And some of the greatest inventions in the world were outcomes of horrible failures and mistakes. So, I mean, that's okay. It's not, that's part of the learning process.
It was just so like adorable, and like they like walked in with these posters, and like you could tell like their blood, sweat, and tears was just like all over everywhere. And it's also interesting like to see the kids who like they're gonna be engineers like when they grow up. Like they're the world's next a famous engineer. I don't know.
I know. Don't you love that?
Yeah, and then it was so cute. Like there was this group of 2 girls that came in, and they were just like so happy to be doing something, and like they like the poster was adorable, and they like took pictures with it, and I was just like I like want to hug you and like just take you to Disneyland or something, and it was like so adorable. But that was probably my favorite Key Club thing that I've done, and I've like done the carnivals and stuff, and also because I like my stepmom. She works at White River, so I've like done the carnival things. But it's fun to see like all the different things that happen in elementary school.
It is, and it's very different. Even when you were in elementary school,
Yeah.
Look how much it's changed as a high school student now, and you're looking back, and it is impressive what the kinds of learning opportunities those kids have, and what they're learning as a result of those opportunities. I am always amazed. It seems like the learning keeps getting pushed down. So what maybe you learned in first grade, they're now learning in kindergarten. I mean, it's just it's amazing.
Well, I think that it's kind of representative of what people have been saying for years about how like pushing foreign language at a young age, and like those formative years of
brain development.
We're just babying them, and then we have a bunch of babies, and it's like, I mean, if I would have started learning Spanish when I was in whatever, like a younger grade, like I struggled so bad with that. Like I was like, I got this. Like everyone in 7th grade was like, you're gonna learn a foreign language, so like be prepared to like work hard. And I was like, I know how to do school. Like don't tell me what to do. I was so sassy in middle school. I still am, but I was like, I just kicked my butt. It kicked my butt so bad, and then I took it my freshman year, and because I sucked so bad at it my freshman year, and then I tried to take another round of it, and I didn't have the foundation to like build off of, and so I was just like, man. And then I took French, and like I kind of got it. Like I got like what you have to do to learn another language, but it was still hard.
It is hard.
And so like, but like those are the things that when you talked about like other countries and we're taking a look at what other people are doing.
Right.
That family who moved here from Rwanda and how they speak like several languages, like we should all be like that.
I agree.
And so it was just interesting to see how like those kinds of things.
I know. I love it.
And what do you think defines a strong school?
What defines a strong school is administrators, people who pour their hearts and souls into their work and who are dedicated and committed and willing to take learning risks and and grow and learn together and be part of a team that is always reimagining itself. That's
Yeah.
what makes strong schools. And then also, of course, being in a community like Noblesville, where we have strong parent support, strong community support. I mean, we're situated in a really good setting. That Noblesville community is a community. It's like one large family, and Noblesville Schools is an extension of that family. We have a very family-like atmosphere
Yeah.
in our schools, and that's what makes us so special.
And do you think that, like, have you ever been to other people's school districts? And
I have. I've worked in 3 other school districts, um, and they're all good school districts, but Noblesville is extra special because of those things I just said. I've worked in 3 very large school districts, much larger than Noblesville schools, and we are a large school district.
yeah,
But it's amazing how, despite our size, we still have a community, a strong sense of community, and I think that is what makes us so unique.
I think that's awesome. Like that you think like that's how I feel about it. Like I was in Fishers till 6th grade,
Okay.
and I I didn't know it at the time, but I honestly was being bullied. Like, but I didn't take it that way. I don't know why, but I just like I feel like this is like weird, but I just felt like nobody liked me. So like, but it was because I didn't fit a mold. I wasn't tall, blonde, and skinny, and my parents didn't live on the pond and drive and have a yacht, and you know what I mean. And it's like, um, and I didn't even know that I was like different or anything like that, but like these other kids did, and that's because like I guess that's not what I care about. Like I don't care like what kind of car you drive, or like I appreciate nice cars, but like I'm not gonna be your friend just because you have a nice car. And I feel like that's definitely how Noblesville is, and it's like it's about being part of a family, not like being better than everybody else.
Exactly.
And whenever people tell me that they're moving here from Fishers, or I'm like, it's 10 times better, like hands down, a better like just environment and culture and community just to be a part of, and you feel like you're part of something, and you're not just like if you don't fit a mold, then you're like nothing.
I hear that from a lot of parents who move into the community from other communities outside, both inside Indiana and outside of Indiana. And that is what draws them to this community, I think. The sense of we are accepting of all people, and everyone, you don't have to fit into a cookie cutter mold. We accept all people, and I think that's a wonderful thing about this community, that we embrace differences, and that's what makes us unique, because we don't all want to look alike. We don't all want to fit into one mold. And I think when you have diversity in your community, you have a richness of cultures, and also a perspective, a more global perspective,
Yeah.
which I love.
And I think a lot of times when you say diversity, a lot of people just think like, oh, like there's like a lot of different races. But I think that diversity like is a lot more than just
It
what the
is.
media paints it to be, and it's about like different thoughts and ideas, and
Yes.
it's about like just like a lot more than. And so I think that's really it's the most beneficial, and like and I think the reason that we are able to have a class like innovations is because we accept the fact that not everyone's going to have the same opinion,
Right?
but we're creating a community of leaders who are able to look at, we might not share the same opinion, but we're able to still sit down and have a conversation about it, instead of blocking each other on Twitter because you think Trump is right and you think Trump is wrong. And
I think that's so important. I love my thinking to be challenged. I love it when people ask questions, and I love to be with people who have different ideas. And like you said, I may go into a conversation thinking one way, but listening and learning from someone else, I could come out of that conversation with a whole new perspective. But I think we have to be willing and open-minded to listen to one another and not talk over one another. And like you said, not block people who don't have our views, but try to learn from other views, because that's what makes this world go around, is that you don't want everybody thinking the same way. You want diversity of thought. You want diversity of opinions. And that's what makes us unique in this country. And we want to celebrate that.
Yeah. And this is gonna be like kind of political, but I think that it's hilarious. I just literally sit and laugh at the world right now. I think because of this Donald Trump, and he literally was elected. I mean, his entire platform was about being different. And the second that he is in, the people who are hating on him are the people who bark for change and bark for difference and acceptance. And it just blows my mind. And you don't have to like him, but you do have to respect him, just as I would respect you. And I'm not asking you to get on your knees and to bow down to the almighty president, but he's a human being, whether you like it or not. And it's honestly more destructive to the community of like the nation than he doesn't care. He clearly does not care if you don't like him. And I feel like if we could take Noblesville and like sprinkle it across the world,
it'd be a better place.
Yeah,
a little bit of Noblesville everywhere. That is a lovely thought.
And I've been a lot of places. Like my mom lives somewhere different, like a totally different climate of culture. And when we go on vacation, we go to lots of different like places of like we've been to the Bahamas, and I've seen a lot of different things. And it definitely, like when people talk about like being like at home and like being in a sense of like community, like I just feel that way. I just think that it's interesting, and like nobody's perfect, but we can try.
Well, yeah, and I do think you bring up a great point. When we travel outside of our own country, we do get a different perspective of the world, and a different appreciation for different lifestyles, different cultures, and different belief structures, and that just broadens our view of the world. I think that's a really good thing.
I think, yeah, I definitely, when I was younger, like, I mean, really, even like as a freshman, whenever everyone says like traveling like broadens your like your mind or whatever it is,
Yes.
I didn't get it. Like, I don't think that I was like mature enough and like old enough to kind of like get it. But I think that like the older I get, I kind of understand now how like you're more accepting the more that you like understand it. So like the people just like can't accept it if they don't get it. And that's the whole point of this podcast is knowledge.
There you go.
And accepting, and you just have to be open to learning, I think. And like the proper kind of learning, not just I hear it and I don't care what you have to say because I'm going to do whatever I want anyways.
Well, and too, for folks that maybe don't have the money to travel, with technology today, we can sit in our living room and travel to all of these different places and get different perspectives. So I think that is truly advantageous to us, because before we were limited by the amount of money we could spend with travel to learn about all of these different places, or you could read it in an encyclopedia, but it's different than, yeah, exactly. But it's different now because we can connect through technology and actually experience some of these other places that we wouldn't be able to afford maybe otherwise.
And actually my last podcast was about two of my favorite documentaries, and I think there's a lot to be said about a good documentary, and how like powerful a good documentary can be, because I know there's like this stigma about like watching movies in class and like it's just teachers who don't give a care, but I feel like the teachers who show movies are the teachers who like know how good this documentary is. And we don't watch Home Alone 2. Like,
right.
We're watching
Nor should you. I mean, during school time.
No. Depends on the class.
I don't think I want to hear about that.
Oh, just kidding. What? But like in the AP and Brownell science class, we watched like The Inconvenient Truth, or we watched another documentary. I can't remember, but like it literally made me cry, and it takes a lot for me to cry at a movie. Like, I even cried during like Marley and Me. But this documentary makes you want to go out there and like throw your car away, and it's just crazy how like there is so much information out there to be known and like to be learned, and people are just so worried about the Kardashians and what Donald Trump is saying. And I mean, I don't even look at the news anymore, and I hate saying that because my position, I'm heading towards a political climate, but it's so hard. It's like sensory overload to even just open the news app on your iPad and look at the feed and like.
Yeah, there's a lot of information coming at us at all times. So I think you do have to find a way to manage. You don't want to live in a vacuum and not know what's going on in the world, but you have to find a way that you can filter some of it and find the resources that are unbiased and so you can try to get a snapshot of what's going on in the world without becoming all consumed by all of those feeds of lots and lots of information. Ugh. It is overwhelming. I understand.
I honestly, since school started, I just don't have time to do anything with the news, and I honestly get my news from Mr. Kinley. Like, if there's something he sees on the news that he thinks I'll be interested in, he'll tell me about it. Or it's just so big that like everyone's talking about it. Mm-hmm. But like, I mean, it's like a project. It's like you have to schedule time in your day to sit there and I was just on, there's this guy named Chris Spangle, and he does a podcast, and I was just a guest on it, and he said that a lot of our destruction is coming from people getting the news off Facebook. And you look at that little 140 character clip of what this 2-page article is about. I mean, you can't understand it in 140 characters. And so I think it's just interesting how media is playing such a big role in it. But then also media, and comes back to the iPads about like using it in a successful and productive way instead of letting it
harmful way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think
we talk about to students. We try so hard to teach students. There's lots of examples of poor use of social media, and we try to teach all of our students about using the tool of communication, since that's something that's so near and dear to your heart. Using it in a way that helps instead of hinders. And I think if we could spread that message throughout the world, we would all be a better place. Because, and then people may be more open-minded to listening to differing thoughts and perspectives instead of when they're said in a respectful manner instead of in an ugly way.
Yeah.
So we've got to work on that. We can at least work on it in our little microcosm of the world in Noblesville. Yes. We can strive to teach that importance of respecting and questioning and thinking deeply about subjects, but also listening and learning from people who think differently than what we think.
I think it's funny how for my internship, we had to do this project, and it was like evaluate these soft skills and how they play a role. And I was sitting there going through it, and I was like, this is so dumb. Like, I don't need to reflect on this. Like, but I never thought about how people might not know these things and might not know how to apply them. And like, not everybody has the opportunity like I might have had for their parents to show them like how to use these things in a workplace or just like have that knowledge. And so I feel like sometimes I take for granted like some of the things that I have learned just because of like the opportunities that I've gone through. And I wouldn't think that there are kids at our school who wouldn't understand like communication and respect and reliability and being on time and being attendance and stuff like that. Like I feel like those are just things that people know, but like people don't know them clearly because I feel like they're these fundamental issues in the.
You can't take that for granted. That's what I loved about our partnership with the city and the Chamber of Commerce with those soft skills and how we were implementing a different soft skill a month at the same time businesses were talking about. So even here, we were talking to elementary, middle school, high school students about, let's say, perseverance. Yeah. And businesses were talking about perseverance at the same time because they are lifelong skills that help us in a school, but they also help us in the workplace. And so you're right, they're so important. And I love the fact that, and that's something unique about Noblesville. I'm not familiar with any other communities that have partnered with the Chamber of Commerce and the city government and the schools to all focus on those. I mean, when you're all that common language and so people at home, they're talking about it at the dinner table with their kids and what they were talking about at the workplace. I just think that's really powerful.
Yeah, no, I think it like fundamentally changes the way that kids will act in their adult life.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at the place that my mom lives in and the place that she's trying to implement these things in, when you look at these parents and their parents and like this whole and how these parents, if they don't change, they're gonna make them just like their kids, unless the kids take charge of like their own destiny or whatever. But like if like it's just these fundamental characteristics that would like flip your community into a different like entire sphere of like just effectiveness and efficiency and it's just crazy. I don't know. I think just to leave on a fun little note, I've always been really curious about like who gets to decide and like how are snow days and delays decided.
This is a really fun thing that you do need to know about. All right, there are a team, there's 4 of us. So at about 4 o'clock in the morning, we get up and we drive the different regions of our school. So we've got it kind of divided up. And we drive all of the roads that our parents and our bus drivers would be driving on. And we look at the conditions, and then we will also get into our school parking lots. And then what we do is we pull over because we never text and drive. And we texting each other, okay, my area looks good or it doesn't look good. It's really super icy. There's blowing and drifting, whatever the case may be. And once I get back to hear from all of the people in our community, then I make, then at 5 o'clock in the morning, we have a call with all of the superintendents. And well, actually, we don't really call anymore. We just text. And I'll say, all right, my roads are really bad. I'm going for a 2-hour delay. And then I let them know what decision I've made based on our conditions in our community. So I know that that can be frustrating because some people will say, well, why didn't you delay when so-and-so delayed? Well, because they were driving their roads too, and their roads were different. Because even though we may be adjacent to each other, the road conditions in each school community could be different. So that's how we make the decision. It's a bright, early morning, and we come back and we make the call, and then I get online and I send out the text, the phone, and the email to all of our families so that they know whether we're closing or delaying or
Going to school?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I get a lot of jokes. I love, some of the high school kids have been really, really funny about creating these funny images.
The memes?
Yeah, well, or imposing pictures of them standing on an 18-foot snowdrift and saying, I can't believe we don't have snow delay. And it's just fun. And I appreciate their humor and I felt the same way when I was in school too.
Yeah.
But
I didn't even, honestly, I feel like this is funny, but I didn't even know that that's what you made. I thought it was the like news station who made that decision.
No, we make them. And you know what's so funny is some of the news stations are so dramatic. Oh my gosh, it's pouring down rain. Or they're just so dramatic. And I know that's just kind of the way it is. So sometimes I think that they're overly dramatic. And so that's why we can't really, and if you watch 3 different news stations, you'll get 3 different weather reports. So you really have to just go out in your community and figure out what's the best for your community. And so sometimes, I'll make a decision by 5 a.m., maybe it's good, but then here's the hard part. By the time the buses get on the road, it's gotten worse. Well, so it's a really hard call. It's a call I take very seriously, and sometimes I get it right, and sometimes, quite frankly, I don't. And I hate it when I miss it because it's hard, because I always do it with the safety of our kids in mind.
Oh, yeah. Actually, last year, I think that you don't really understand the full scope of the dangers of driving in elements until you're a driver.
Yeah, that is true.
And I had my license for probably a couple months. No, I had it for a year because I got it my sophomore year. And this was like the first winter, though, that I'd driven in. Mm-hmm. And my dad's like, every morning he's like, be safe. And I'm like, whatever, just like stop bothering me. And I don't know why I didn't wear a winter coat that day. But because I need someone to tell me what to do. But I came outside and I had like leggings and like a sweatshirt on or something, and my car was just covered in like this in snow, and I'm like, what the heck? And so I like am trying to brush off as fast as I can because I'm freezing, and so I'm like, I just need to get home. But like my windshield isn't really covered all the way, or like uncovered, and so like I'm driving down the road, and that road, I don't know what it's called, but it like gets, when school lets out, it's busy, and I wasn't paying like the most attention, and I hit my friend's car because I go sliding into the back on this ice, and I'm like trying to brake, and it was just like crazy. I will always remember that for the rest of my life. That was probably the most traumatic experience.
Yeah, I think as new drivers, I can remember my first winter driving. I just got my license, and I had a similar. I didn't hit, but I kind of spun around on an icy road because I was driving faster than I should have been under those conditions.
Yeah.
So I think that's just part of learning. That's why when parents say be safe, they know what they're
They
talking
mean
about
it.
because it happened to them at one
Yeah.
point.
It's so frustrating when they're right.
That's right.
Because you like live your whole life trying to prove them wrong, and then when they're right, you're like, please leave. Like, we didn't ask for you. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast. It was really fun. I was kind of nervous, but
I enjoyed it. Thank you,
Yeah,
Sarah. I
thank
really
you.
enjoyed it.
Definitely go follow Beth on Twitter. I will put that in the description, and then Noblesville Schools has Facebook and Twitter.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so go follow them, and then also follow my Twitter so you can get updates about the humanitarian. And until next time.